Why's everybody always picking on me? I'm just a little old. One thing I don't ever get. Why everybody always hating on the 6.5 Creedmoor? Bullseye! Look, you don't 6.5 need more. You 6.5 need more practice. Seriously, today I want to talk to you about a sweetheart of a round that everybody loves to hate on, but everybody secretly got in their closet. This little guy right here. Don't be playing like you don't love it, because everybody does. I'm gonna level with you. I'm just 100% real right here. If you can't make a 6.5 Creedmoor shoot accurately, maybe you need a new hobby. All right, so I've gotten extremely tired of packing, so I decided to take my 6.5 Creedmoor out to the range today. One of them. This is actually one I built. It's a Liberty Saturn barrel on a Trude Remington 700 Action. This is basically, I built it similar to an M24-ish clone. It's got an M24 profile barrel, cut down to 22 inches, threaded 5/8 by 24 with a muzzle brake for my can. So this is like my go-to sweetheart darling rifle, Helga. You've seen her on the channel before. And this is one of those rifles. It's one of the first ones I built, precision rifles, bolt action anyway. And it's one of those rifles that really, and cartridges, it really makes you love a rifle and cartridge combination in the 6.5 caliber specifically. So I had a good chance to get out to the range today. I'm going to cut in some range footage here of some group testing I did, just loads I've been kicking around, like random loads. I'm cleaning out stuff right now, you know, getting ready to pack. So I've got all these random loads that I've tried over the years, and I have the leftovers from them. So I'm just kind of going through my way through them, shooting them up, doing some coyote hunting, that kind of stuff out at the property I hunt, and just kind of getting some group testing, all those good things, and goofing off. So this is one of those things though that reminded me, I haven't pulled this rifle out of the safe in a while, and it reminds me every time I pull it out of the safe why I love not only this rifle, it's one of the sweetest shooters I got, but the 6.5 Creedmoor cartridge in general. So I'm going to share with you some of those things I love about it, and why maybe it could find a place in your stable of firearms, and you might actually fall in love with it too if you haven't tried it yet. At this point in the game though, I don't think there's many people that haven't tried the 6.5 Creedmoor. A little hot. It's okay though. Not impressed with the 143s. The Hornets go walking. It'll work for a deer load, but wouldn't write home about it. That's a spicy load. I don't know about that. That was a clean shot. That was pretty clean. That's a one-hole punch. So, Hornety has some wins and has some misses. That's spicy. This right here is why 6.5 Creedmoor for me almost every time when I need a larger caliber than the 6 ARC. These little bad boys right here, these are at 50 yards, okay, 3-shot groups, so a small subset of groups, but at 50 yards. Factory ammo, that's clover leafing, so we're looking at about a half MOA. These are 140 ELD load I have. It's a really good load, under half MOA. These are 140 RDF loads I have. Not the best load in the world, but it's okay. And this is a factory Cellar and Bellet, which is pretty much the cheapest factory ammo you can get for the 6.5 Creedmoor for tactical. And we're looking at like a half MOA. Half MOA, so you can print a 1/2-inch dot at 50 yards with these things. Now, based on my experience with this rifle and shooting these loads at longer ranges, that correlates. My zero load for my 143 ELDX Hunter, not the best one in the world. Not super impressed with that load, so we're going to develop that a little bit more. We're going to work on that one. Checking zero there. Now this guy right here, if I can get set up for a 300-yard shot today, I'm going to try to put a 300-yard group down on that guy right there. See what we get. And I'm going to use this load. That's the one. We're going to use that load. Or I don't know, maybe that one. Maybe the ELDs. They seem to have printed the smaller of the group. So let's go back and see how far out we can get this target. All right, all fun and jokes aside, let's talk about 6.5 Creedmoor and what I think is one of the major benefits to it, especially for old dogs who were raised on the old school of doing things. You know, the precision rifle game in the last 10 to 15 years has blossomed into this just massive genre and category of shooters and you know, rifle aficionados and gun people and all that stuff. It's really come into its own so far as a generational pursuit or hobby for people. And I will argue that the one cartridge that catalyzed that for people is the 6.5 Creedmoor. The 6.5 Creedmoor made precision long-range shooting more understandable and more accessible to more people, and brought it to the mainstream. And it really has to do more than just with clever marketing and good bullet design and everything, which Hornady is great at, but it's intelligent cartridge design. It's intelligent accuracy and precision design, starting with the cartridge from the ground up. The 6.5 Creedmoor is actually derived from the 30TC, the 30 Thompson Center cartridge, which is a sweetheart of a round 2. We'll talk about one of these days when I get to build one. But basically, Hornady took the 30TC concept with you know, like a kind of perfected case volume dimension, shoulder angle, and neck length, and necked it down to the 6.5 Creedmoor. So you get the longer, sleeker, more aerodynamic, and higher sectional density and higher ballistic coefficient type of bullets out of the 6.5 versus some of the other 6.5s that have been out there. Like the 6.5x55 Swede is the more common 6.5 known for the last 100 years or so. The 6.5 Creedmoor perfected the design of the cartridge and the bullets to go in it, along with twist rates and barrel and all that good stuff, shoulder, the whole 9 yards. Everything was taken into consideration to create a cartridge that is optimized. So when you're talking about accuracy and precision in a rifle, long range especially, it's especially relevant to long range, optimization of consistency and specifications, tolerances, all those things, that's what gives you true precision and accuracy, consistent and reliable over long and broad distances all the way out 2,000 and beyond. Some of us in the older school, before all this, you know, if you ever shot F-class, if you ever did like just prairie dog hunting, that kind of thing, most of us in my generation, Gen X, I'm a little bit older, learned long range on 308s, 30-06s, 300 Win Mags, stuff like that. They were kind of standard, you know, things you would see on the, you know, the competition line at whatever F-class or whatever you were shooting before PRS really became a thing. So that's where you start. And learning long range on a 308 is, it has some value to it because they do not buck the wind very good past 800 yards and stuff like that. And you are forced to actually learn the fundamentals of shooting and forced to learn all the math behind it and all the science behind getting a bullet that is a really good bullet and a good caliber and cartridge to be on target at really long distances that are well beyond the envelope of its kind of reasonable specifications. Past 800 yards at 308 starts to have some problems. You can still do it. You can make fantastic shots. Have you ever watched anybody shoot Palma with the 155 grain Palmas with 308s at 1,000 yards? It's an amazing thing to watch people do it with iron sights. It's a fantastic discipline, and that's where a lot of us kind of grew up, was my generation and prior, on that type of shooting. And it all kind of correlates with what the snipers were using, honestly. Precision rifle games, precision rifle competitions are derivations of playing at snipering. The long story short, it's playing at snipering, and it's what the snipers are trained on in the military, like the 308 and stuff like that. It's been a standard for a long time. The 6.5 Creedmoor takes all those wonderful things about a short action cartridge like the 308 and optimizes them with a more efficient bullet for extended ranges, higher hit percentage, less drop, less drift, less affected by your atmospheric conditions for long range shooting, which is super optimal. So that's why I would argue the 6.5 Creedmoor is one of the most versatile cartridges in the short action category, you know, just standard size bolt action rifles. And its versatility goes beyond just competition use. It's designed that way. It's designed with extreme range and extreme accuracy, extreme precision, extreme repeatability as a turnkey solution for just buying a box of ammo and putting it in a rifle and shooting accurately, sub-minute of angle, competition style, right out of the gate. I mean, that was the kind of, I guess you could say, the ideology behind the 6.5 Creedmoor from the technicians at Hornady, is a turnkey solution. But it was brought to market in such a way to make it easy for inexperienced shooters, newer shooters, people interested in precision rifle game, smaller stature shooters, whatever, to actually get out and enjoy long-range shooting with some success without having to know all the snipery things and be able to, you know, dial in 308s and stuff like that out to long range, because it can be, there's a learning curve, you know what I mean? It just shortened the learning curve for precision rifle shooting. It's not a magic button. Your fundamentals still have to be there. Your information still has to be there. You have to know your atmospherics. You have to know all the ballistics. You have to know those things. But with the invention of modern ballistic calculation apps and stuff like that for your phone, it changed everything. It really did. And the 6.5 Creedmoor was the cartridge at the nexus of all of that to begin with. Now we have all slew of things out there. We have the 6mm Creedmoor, we have the 6.5 PRC, we have the 7mm PRC, we have all the other things that everybody's been trying to invent to catch up to the 6.5 Creedmoor over the last 10 to 15 years to like replace it or whatever, and you still can't. It is probably one of the most produced rifles in the gun space. Between, if you look up any manufacturer that makes rifles, you're gonna see 6.5 Creedmoor and 308 at the top of their list. Those are two cartridges I think that will never die. And the 6.5 Creedmoor is just the sweetheart of the two, in that it makes precision at longer ranges more accessible to more people and a little bit easier, which is a huge thing. The idea of long range shooting is to hit the target. Like, that's your whole point and purpose. Long range shooting is to hit the target, and you want to eliminate as many factors and variables that detract from your ability to do so as possible. Why not use a better, more efficient cartridge? You see out at the range today, I did some shooting. I'm gonna put some of that B-roll in here. I'm gonna run it at just standard speed. I did a 5-shot group of one of my loads at 226 yards, and I'll run it at speed so you'll see just on time how I did it. And I got an okay result out of it. I got a sub-minute group, so it was 0.9 or whatever at 226 yards. I wish I'd have built a little bit better shooting position. I couldn't really get my gun low enough for the elevation I was at. I should have put the bipods on and got back up on a bag, but still managed to print sub-minute group. This is also helping dope my actual velocities for this rifle, so that was kind of one of the reasons. I didn't adjust my zero or anything. I just doped for my velocity so that I could true it, because I don't have my chronograph with me. Okay, so we are at 226 yards. It's the farthest shot I can get today safely, reasonably. We're way up in there somewhere. So I actually am still on my zero. I'm only calling for about 1 MOA or 0.1 milliradians of adjustment for the shot angle today on this one, because it's a 6.5 Creedmoor and not a, you know, brick. Falling brick. So I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna get on target and pop some rounds. No scope adjustments whatsoever. Let's see what we get. That's a spicy meatball. Do some more. Popping dirt behind the target, so we're in the right spot. One more. All right, let's go see how we did before we piss off the neighbors too much more. So if you find yourself without a chronograph, you can actually dope using distance and group size and group drop at those distances to do that without needing fancy wizardry and gadgetry. You just do the math of it. We'll cover that in a different video because it's kind of it's not a complex topic, but it is a detailed subject I want to cover better. So I threw that in this group. I got some really good results. Let's break them down like a shotgun. The first group I want to talk about is an actual factory load. It is this group right here from Fiocchi. It's shooting a 142 grain Sierra Match King out of Fiocchi factory ammunition. This is a foreign ammunition, Italian made or whatever. Pretty inexpensive. I love this stuff. It's great ammunition. And this is the factory group I got straight up today after putting this thing in the field stock. 3 shots at 50 yards, .377 MOA. Nice little cloverleaf. That's not bad. I will take that. All right, next load I went over to my 140 ELD load. Again, 3-shot group, 50 yards, .331 minutes of angle. That one's a hand load. A little bit better, but not a whole lot. Not enough to be like a huge difference, but definitely still better. That's amazing. I like it. And the third group, this is the one that's funniest to me. Cellar and Bellet. I love their ammo, I love their brass. I shoot it a lot because it's cheap. That's the point. It's dirt cheap ammo for the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's practice plinking ammo. .364 minute of angle group. 3 shots at 50 yards. I've gotten correlating results at 100, 200, and 500 yards with this because I've tested it out to 500 yards with group sizes. Custom gun, factory load. That's amazing. You can who can argue with that? The feet per second and the ballistic coefficient on that particular bullet is not super great. Like out to 1,000 yards, you may not still be stable because it doesn't have the highest ballistic coefficient just for the bullet they use or whatever. But the velocities are around 2550-ish, 2600. But the actual accuracy of it and the precision is amazing. For it's the cheapest stuff you can get. It used to be. I don't really know anymore, but it's the cheapest stuff you could get. All right, and so bringing to my last group I'll talk about is the actual 226 yard group I just shot today, this morning, .936 minute of angle at 226 yards, and I trued it out to 26-25 feet per second. It's one of my hand loads with the Hornady ELDs is what I was shooting. That's not bad. I will take that. I will take that from a rough position, kind of going through it pretty quickly. You know what I mean? Trying to get the bullets downrange so I can get out of there. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Sub-minute group. So this is just a small snapshot of today's shooting with the 6.5 Creedmoor, and that's what really brought this whole video about, is I just decided to get that thing out and start playing with it today while I'm, you know, in between packing jobs and stuff like that. And I fall in love with it every time I shoot the cartridge. I really do. Every time I get out there and I get to playing with this thing or I get to loading it, I fall in love with this cartridge all over again. It is one of those cartridges that I think can be pretty much a do-all kind of cartridge. You can hunt with it. The velocity, the sectional density, it's more than a sufficient cartridge for hunting. Just about everything big game wise. I'm out here, let's look at this. At 1,000 yards, I'm still putting down 1,400 feet per second and 637 foot-pounds of energy. Okay, so that's still pretty spicy. That's enough to punch through some meat. Let's say the threshold for an elk is 1,500 foot-pounds. Let's just throw that out there as a number. If you wanted to use this on elk, 2,100 feet per second, 1,500 foot-pounds, 350 yards. You could do it. It's not something I would take, like if you're the only dedicated elk gun and you hunt elk all the time and you're doing that kind of thing and you're doing extended ranges, I probably wouldn't take this rifle, but I would take this if I was doing it inside 300 to 300 yards, 350 to 300 yards, and it was like an occasional thing and I didn't need to build myself a dedicated elk gun, but I wanted to hunt one with a 6.5 Creedmoor. I would definitely take this. You would just have to be picky with your shots. You couldn't take, you know, hard quartering 2 shots unless you're using a copper bullet, and those CX bullets, the 130s, are amazing penetrators. And you have to keep it inside a reasonable range. You can definitely do it. So from elk on down, you can hunt with this thing. There's nothing out there you can't hunt with it. There's people all over the world taking game like crazy with this cartridge. You just have to do it at reasonable distances. So it more than fills the void for hunting applications, for tactical, sniper and law enforcement applications. Definitely. I've heard there's units using it out there, and I can see why. It's accurate, it's long range. It is hard to miss. It is hard to miss. Once you get one of these rifles dialed in and you know the math of it, it's very hard to miss with one of these rifles. If your load and your rifle is built correctly and your load data is all correct, it's hard to miss, even for an average shooter. When you compare it to something like the 308, you get more reach and more energy downrange, more velocity downrange. Okay, just further distances. That's all there is to it, and less wind drift and less drop. It makes for a flatter shooter. Now I get it, it's not an anti-material 300 Win Mag type of, you know, mile-long shooter for taking game down. I wouldn't even try it with that. But if you're looking at a viable cartridge, and you're looking at something that can do just about everything, why all the hate for the 6.5 Creedmoor? It's one of those things I don't actually understand. Why everybody hates on this dude? It's a great freaking cartridge. It really is. It's a fantastic cartridge. It's one that I will keep in my stable. I replaced most of my larger calibers with it, my larger, you know, larger frame rifles with it. That don't mean I won't ever get anything else or use anything else, because I definitely want to try out the 7 PRC and stuff like that for open country hunting, like bigger game, like big dogs, like the elk and all those things. If I'm going after, you know, big dogs consistently and regularly, I'm going to build a bigger rifle just because it gives me more of an advantage. It gives me more of a ballistic advantage at longer ranges for bigger game, and that's a very specific use case. But other than that, general use case, the 6.5 Creedmoor can fit just about any application you could possibly need for a rifle, up to and including super large game. I wouldn't take it after a brown bear, unless you got a death wish. All right, that's it for me today. Thank y'all for joining me again. If you have any comments, questions, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff helps keep the algorithms from breaking us down and shutting us down. Thank y'all for joining me again. Leave your comments below. What do you think about the 6.5 Creedmoor? I know there's a lot of hate for it. There's a lot of love for it, but most everybody has it in their closet. Come out of the closet. Don't be scared. Don't be shy. I won't call you a hipster. People won't make fun of you at the range because they're secretly wanting to get